Hi everybody, it's me, Bob Saunders, once again, and I'm going to talk to you today about a subject that's been worrying me for some time, and it doesn't give me any pleasure to talk about, really. It's this so-called shift of the planet Earth from the third dimension, which we're in now, to the fourth or fifth dimension. And I'm concerned about where the information is coming from and the fact that people believe it. Now, I'm not putting into doubt at all the correctness and the honesty and so on of those people that channel this information, but I am rather concerned about the source of it and whether it could happen. Now, I'll try and keep this as short as I can, but there's rather a lot to talk about, so it may take a few minutes, and I apologise for that before I start. Now, I better explain who I am first of all. And by the way, I've got some notes down here, so if I keep looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. I am somebody who is a trained medium, and I've been working for the last 30 years or so, on and off, with a group of spiritual beings that call themselves the Great White Brotherhood. And as I mentioned in a book that I put on, what do they call it, a talking book that I put online a little while ago, which I'll put a link down here so that you can see it if you want, I talked about how I managed to meet them and all the rest of it. And I also mentioned that when I first got in contact with the White Brotherhood, I asked them, that they asked me in the first place, or one of them did, and I'll talk about him in a minute because it has a little importance in the story. He asked me to ask all my family and friends any questions they might have on whatever subject, and he would do his best to answer it. So I immediately went from the room in which I was meditating into the living room and told my family, it was my wife and 3 children at the time, I told them that I asked them had they got any questions, and straight away one of my sons said, ask him about UFOs and aliens and so on. So I went back and I got in contact with this man, and he said that would be the one subject about which the Great White Brotherhood would never talk. Okay, now, and they never have. Now, what does that mean? I think it's true to say that if they thought that aliens didn't exist, it was all figments of our imagination, I think they would have said so. I think this gentleman would have said so. And so from that we must assume that they do exist. Now, I also surmise, I don't know, but I surmise that if these aliens were on our side, working in conjunction with the powers of goodness, which the White Brotherhood do, had they been working with those people and trying to help us really, I think he would have said so as well. He had nothing to hide. The fact that he refused to talk about it suggested to me that perhaps these people are not what they say they are, and perhaps their agenda is not as honest as one would hope. I've no proof of that, but my intuition tells me there's something wrong there. Now, I'll very quickly start to tell you how I met this gentleman that was talking to me, and as a story to... No, I'm going to start first of all with a bad event that happened to me, to give you a warning. I had suddenly had the urge, probably nearly 40 years ago now, I suddenly had the urge to start meditating and to find out about the spiritual realms. Why it came to me, I don't know, but I did. So I went to my local library and I got books out on how to do it and so on, and I sat down every evening after work and all the rest of it and started to learn to meditate. and I made great strides. I didn't really find it very difficult at all. And I was very pleased and cocky with myself and so on. Now, in the area of London, in England, where I lived, there was a famous medium. Her name was Jessie Nason. She's dead now, I think, but she used to hold, in a hall above a local library in Dulwich in southeast London, she used to hold a meeting once a week where the public could attend, and she would give messages to people. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I started to attend these meetings, and I noticed the various people getting messages, and I noticed also that when I sat in the hall before it started, I could see like light bulbs above certain people's heads, like a little light bulb sticking above their heads, and they would be the people that would get messages. Jessie Nason could see this light, and she used to mention it. Oh, the light's shining, I'm coming to you now, and she would go and talk to somebody about their long lost granny and all the rest of it. And so I, very stupidly one day while I was there, I decided to open myself psychically to see what would happen, to see if I could get the message. So I did. And very soon she came to me and she said, oh, there's a gentleman, I forget his name now, Mr. Blah Blah, Mr. Bloggs. She said, there's a gentleman that says he's a friend of yours and would like to contact you. Now, you have to bear that in mind, that someone announced themselves and said his intent. He gave his name. I don't know if it was his real name, but he gave a name, and he gave his intention that he would like to contact me. I, like a fool, said, yes, he's very welcome, you know. And that's the other mistake, that I welcomed him into my life. Now, very soon after that, at the end, I came home after the meeting and so on, and very soon I noticed that I didn't feel right. I didn't feel ill, but I didn't feel good. I felt bad. Something was wrong. And I noticed all my psychic powers had disappeared. I couldn't meditate, I couldn't see anything, I couldn't do anything. Now, fortunately for me, I went a few days after to our local circle. I used to belong to a group of trainee mediums under the control of an excellent lady medium. Her name's Beryl something or other. And as I walked in the door, she straight away said to me, oh, you've got someone with you, you've got an evil spirit with you. And she came over to me and she said, I don't know what she said, I just stood there totally petrified, and she said, blah, 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 and this person disappeared. And all my powers came back and I felt perfectly normal. Now, I was very, very lucky. What I'd done was open my psychic, my developing psychic abilities into the lower astral, and straight away I was trapped by something. Now, I'm going to go from there to mentioning how the White Brotherhood contacted me. Now, once again, a few weeks or a few months later, I'm sitting meditating, and obviously I've got my eyes shut and I'm trying to visualize something in my mind. In those days I used to, well, I still do, I used to visualize either a fountain playing or a diamond turning, flashing. The idea being to try and see this white light that we're told to look for. Now I can see it fairly without doing all that, but at the time I couldn't, so I was sitting practicing all this stuff. Excuse me, the scratching noise is a dog just walking in. Now, I've lost my train of thought. Now, right, I was sitting meditating, and all of a sudden I saw, obviously with my eye shut, I saw in my mind's eye, if you like, this gentleman, a Victorian looking gentleman in a long black cloak, a stovepipe hat. You remember the Victorian stovepipe hats, right? And a long beard, and he appeared in front of me. Well, if you've done any meditation, you'll know that you do see sort of strange things. So I pushed him aside, get out of the way, I don't want you near me, and carried on meditating. He came back again, get out of the way, and he came back again. I said, okay, if you're really there and if you want to contact me, who are you, what do you want? And he said, my name is William Latimer, I'm a doctor. He was when he was alive on earth, and he still is in the spiritual realms. And he said, I've come to help you become a healer, help sick people. I said, oh yeah, pull the other one, it's got bells on it, okay, go away. No, he said, I'm real, I'm genuine. I said, okay, if you are genuine, tell me where and when you were born, where and when you died, where you were educated, where you practiced as a doctor, and so on. And he did. He told me all that. And I wrote off, because I lived in England at the time, I live in France now, I wrote off to the Royal College of Physicians and the Royal College of Surgeons, and I told them a little lie. I told them that this William Latimer was a member of my family, and could they please tell me anything about him. And sure enough, back came the information from both these sources saying that this man indeed did exist. He was educated at Edinburgh University in Scotland, and he practiced, I think, in the Yorkshire area. What he didn't tell me, and what they told me, was that he later became the area health officer for a certain area. So he was actually quite an important man, but he didn't mention that. And that's another important point. He didn't brag. He didn't tell me, oh yes, I'm Maître Zonky Donkey from the 99th dimension. He did none of that. Just plain down to earth, feet on the ground stuff, okay? So I said to him, okay, well, the next time I was meditating, obviously all this took a few weeks to get together, in which he didn't reappear. I asked him to come back, and I said, okay, I've checked you out, you appear to be real, I'll take you on probation. You play any tricks on me and you're gone. And he worked for me, well, he still does, many, many, many years now, and he's never once said or done anything that was wrong. He's helped lots and lots of people, he saved many people's lives and so on, but he's never ever done anything wrong, and he's never ever told me any lie. When he promises something, he does it. Now, let's get back to this so-called earth shift. Now, people channel and apparently get in contact with some beings from somewhere. They say, well, years ago, they used to say they came from the moon, and when we realised they didn't, they said they came from Mars, and then we realised they didn't, and now they come from the Pleiades and places where we can't check anymore. And they talk about all sorts of strange things. They talk about the Earth moving into another dimension. Now, already that can't happen. The planet Earth, just like us, has got a number of auras around it, just as we have. The planet Earth is alive just as we are, with its 7 auras, and it's already, in a way, in those in its 4th and 5th and whatever dimension. It's already there because they're part of its reality. But could you imagine for one instant that all of a sudden one day the planet Earth decides to shift its attention from this real world that we see around us now into its 4th dimension? Now, I don't think the planet Earth has got that sort of mentality. I'm not saying it's not intelligent, but I don't think the planet Earth thinks like that. We can, and at the end of this little video I'll show you how to meditate and so that you can get into those areas safely. But I don't think the planet Earth thinks in its wildest dreams about shifting. Now, if it did, we possibly would not notice any difference, because when I move my thoughts into another dimension, I appear to create like another me. My physical body is sitting on the ground, not on the ground, on a chair, and I've got my eyes closed and I'm meditating, but there's another me wandering about in another dimension. So why should we notice any difference? What you can do is you can learn to go into those other dimensions. And don't forget that those fourth dimensions, I'll quickly break off and say, I don't know where the fifth dimension is. The fourth dimension is multi-layered, and I've been up and down a good deal of it, but I have never ever seen a fifth dimension. I can't imagine how high that would be. I think it's beyond my powers of comprehension to imagine what will be in a fifth dimension. Let alone, I heard some woman talking to me, talking on internet the other day, saying that she had a guide that came from the 18th dimension. This is Looney Tunes, you know, this is ridiculous. And naturally, her guide, the person contacting her, had a very fancy name. It's nonsense. Now, let me just have a look at my notes. Now, I'm a bit concerned, well, I'm very concerned about where this information is coming from. Because, as I said, if the White Brotherhood don't want to talk to me about other beings outside of the human reality that we know, I'm doubtful that they're honest people. Also, I'll just mention that probably the greatest black magician that recent times has ever known, Aleister Crowley, he apparently did a seance once to summon a being, a devil, and it was a little grey. He described it, he drew it and he described it to people, and it turned out to be what we call a little grey alien. Now, where, you know, what was he contacting? Where do these grey aliens live? Where do these other beings that they appear in their flying saucers in conjunction with, where do they come from? Very difficult to find out, but I have a feeling. You see, the fourth dimension, this is the third dimension where we're here. The fourth dimension, I think, well, I know, is round us. It's also around the planet Earth, as I mentioned earlier. Now, we can transfer, when we know how, and when we can do it safely, we can transfer our consciousness from here into that fourth dimension, but in between the true fourth dimension and us is another part of the fourth dimension, a lower part, and in that lower part are some horrible thought forms, not nature spirits. I'm not talking about little elves and all that. I think they're more in the etheric band from what I've seen, but things that designed by nature to be there. I also think there's a lot of evil forces there. I also know that there are the dregs of humanity, real drunkards. I'm not talking about somebody who has a drink or two in the evening. The real drunkards, the real people that take drugs excessively and possibly die of an overdose, the people that are horrible, evil, the people that become child rapists, and you know the sort of people I'm talking about. A lot of them end up there. They don't want to go off and face whatever it is they've got to face, possibly hell or whatever, so they stay in that area as long as they can. Now, they get brassed off being in that area. I've never actually been allowed to see that area where my guides come and get me. Now, and I'm saying this, they don't physically take me. I shut my eyes and meditate, and I feel them come close to me. I feel them actually put their hands on me, and they kind of lift me up. And all of a sudden, I'm in the area of light, the true fourth, the spiritual fourth dimension. They shield me from seeing that horrible fourth dimension. The problem is this, that channelers as honest and well-meaning as they might be, if they've not been properly trained, could possibly open a channel into that lower fourth dimension. I'm not saying they do, I'm saying it could happen. And from there, they draw in, because when they get there and they get contacted by somebody, remember what I said earlier, that people have, there's these, no, I'll explain it slightly different. If I come and knock on your street door, and you open your door, I am obliged, well, I could break in and I'm not going to do that. I would announce who I am, what my intention is, in other words, what I want, and wait for you to invite me in. Those three things. I have to say who I am, I have to say what I've come for, and I have to wait for you to ask me to come in. Okay? Those three things. Now, if you open your mind without having proper protection and training and so on, you will possibly enter that lower area. And there, and if you say, oh, please come and talk to me, you know, I'm waiting to be channeling information from you, you're going to get any nonsensical or some sort of nature spirit trapping himself to you, or very possibly one of these horrible beings. Now, I'm not saying that all aliens are horrible. I don't know. I've never actually spoken to one. I've obviously seen flying saucers and things, and before we live where we live now, my wife and I had a 200-acre farm in the Aude in south of France, not far from, what was it called? Not Montségur. There was another place where all these people for the 21st of December 2012 were busy buying up land because it was the only place that was going to be saved. I can't remember the name, but our farm wasn't very far from there. And one evening my wife was coming home from a theatrical thing she used to do with other women in the local village. She was driving home because our farm was pretty remote, and she saw she came along our road, and you would turn off and go to our house, and there was a kind of a valley just in front, and she saw a flying saucer floating in that valley. So we believe they exist, but I'm not sure where they're coming from. I'm not sure what their intention is, and I think it's very dangerous to just open your minds and allow people that you don't know to come into your lives. It may be that they're completely honest, maybe they're completely above board, but I managed to check that doctor out. Do you remember me talking about that? I managed to check that he was a real person. And then I worked with him over a long time and made sure that he was what he said he was, that he had the knowledge that he said he had, and that he was honest and good. And then I trusted him. Now, I don't know who these people are. I don't know whether you can't really check where they're coming from. I know if you look at stuff on internet, you suddenly see flying saucers appear in the night sky. Bop, they're suddenly there. Now, where are they coming from? And they suddenly disappear just as quickly. Where are they going to? I don't know. Be very careful. Have I got anything else to say? Right, now, I'm just going to say one or two more things, and then I'll very quickly tell you how to meditate correctly and all the rest of it. Now, what I'm worried about is those people who have opened their channel and been possessed with something that may not be what they want and want to get rid of it. It's extremely difficult. In my case, I was lucky. I knew a trained medium and she knew what to do about it. Now, if you can't find a good, honest, trained medium, you've got problems, and I really can't help you with that. All I can advise you, if you think that you may be possessed with some entity that's not doing you any good and you want to get rid of it, do your best to find a decent medium. Now there's a lot of charlatans out there. A trained medium, a really good one, never asks for money. They might ask for you to pay their bus fare or whatever, just a few euros or dollars or pounds, depending on what country you live in, but they never ask for money. If you get a medium that says, yes, I want $50, that's a charlatan. Don't have anything to do with them. That's the first thing. Now, how to meditate and do it correctly. It's really quite simple, and it's all explained in that book. So I put the link on there, but I'll tell you anyway. You just shut your eyes. You sit down quietly in a chair. You make sure the door's shut and the windows are shut and that you're on your own. Then you close your eyes and you try and calm all your body down. You possibly know all this already. Then you have to ask for protection. If you don't, you won't get it. You have to ask God to send your guides and your, excuse me pointing, and his angels to stand guard over you whilst you're meditating. That's very, very important. And then you have to try and imagine a cocoon round you, rather like the shell of an egg. Imagine, you have to try and imagine that with your eyes shut. And personally, I imagine it 3 times to make sure it's there. And then you just sit quietly, and what you're supposed to do is to try and visualize a white light. Now that is very, very difficult to do. So what I do is I try to imagine something else that sparkles, like a fountain, like a diamond, and eventually, just you take the diamond, eventually you can hold this diamond in your mind's eye and make it turn and watch light flashing off it and sparkling in your eyes, and eventually you'll see this white light. Now whether you see it or not, it's not that important at the beginning, but this is important. When you come to the end of the little meditation, send that force that God sent you in that white light. Even if you haven't seen it, he sent you some white light. You must send that off to the world, or to a sick person you know, or to politicians, or the people creating all the wars. You just send out those thoughts. What you're doing, God gives you a certain power, and you must send that power out in peace and love to other people. Otherwise it stops with you and is wasted. When it goes out, it goes on and on and on and is used more and more, and so on. Now that's very important too. Okay? Now at the end of the meditation, you must thank your guides, thank God if you wish, thank your helpers and so on that have stood guard over you, and then imagine this cocoon that you put over you disappearing. Okay? And then you come back to your normal daily life. Do not try to send yourself off into another dimension until you're contacted by someone that you can trust, who will show you how to do it. You can't do it, you can do it on your own, unfortunately, but until you've filled your various auras with sufficient spiritual power and strength, you will almost certainly finish up somewhere where you don't want to be. So don't try and project yourself. By all means do meditation, do it every day if you wish, do prayer, help your fellow man and so on, but do not try to do any astral travel until you know that it's the moment, and you'll know when it's the moment. Your guides will tell you that it's the moment, and they will take you safely on a journey round the wonderful spiritual worlds and so on. Okay? Now, I'm sorry that I've had to say all that, but I really felt I had to, because I'm extremely concerned about all this nonsense about the third and the planet Earth changing. It's not going to happen. You're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly, wow, no more bills to pay, no more wars. No, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. But you can learn to operate in those other worlds and be protected yourself from all these wars and hatreds and all the rest of it. You can learn to do that. But you can't the planet Earth is not going to alter. Okay? Sorry about that. That's my opinion. Think what you like, and please don't think I'm criticising anybody, because I'm not. If you've been going down this road, this New Age movement and so on, okay, fine. You know, I'm not criticising you at all. We've all got our road to, our path to travel through life, and I hope it brings you peace, love and happiness. Okay? Namaste.